was the big bad storm where Jesus was sleeping and the disciples were freaking out because they thought they were dying. They woke up Jesus and, he saved the day. And so anyway, so now they're coming up to shore. As they arrive in the region of Gerasenes, I probably said that wrong, across from the Lake of Galilee, as Jesus was climbing out of a boat, a man who was possessed by demons came out to meet him. For a long time he had been homeless and naked, living in a cemetery outside of town. As soon as he saw Jesus, he shrieked and fell down in front of him. Then he screamed, "Why are you interfering with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? Please, I beg you, don't torture me." For Jesus had already commanded the evil spirit to come out of him. The spirit had often taken control of the man. Even when he was placed under guard and put in chains and shackles, he simply broke them and rushed out into the wilderness, completely under the demon's power. So Jesus demanded, "What is your name?" "Legion," he replied, for he was filled with many demons. The demons kept begging Jesus not to send them into the bottomless pit. There happened to be a large herd of pigs feeding on the hillside nearby, and the demons begged him to let them enter into the pigs. So Jesus gave them permission. Then the demons came out of the man and entered the pigs, and the entire herd plunged down the steep hillside into the lake and drowned. When the herdsmen saw it, they fled to the nearby town and the surrounding countryside, spreading the news as they ran. People rushed out to see what had happened. A crowd soon gathered around Jesus, and they saw the man who had been freed from the demons. He was sitting at Jesus' feet, fully clothed and perfectly sane, and they were all afraid. Then those who had seen what had happened told the others how the demon-possessed man had been healed, and all the people in the region of the Gerasenes begged Jesus to go away and leave them alone, for a great wave of fear swept over them. So Jesus returned to the boat and left, crossing back to the other side of the lake. The men who had been freed from the demons begged to go with him, but Jesus sent him home, saying, "No, go back to your family and tell them everything God has done for you." So he went all through the town proclaiming the great things Jesus had done for him. So actually, I want to start sharing some of my own commentary before we go into the notes for what was on here. So this demon-possessed man comes up to Jesus, right, and immediately recognizes who he is as a deity, right? Not just here's teacher, like right away knew that it was the Son of Man. He said Jesus, right? And so who would know that other than like some evil dark spirit? Okay. And just like to kind of see, I don't know if you've read anything else about like demon possession up to this point, but we can see how severe it is, right? Like even though they've shackled him down with chains, the power of this demon is so strong and fierce that he's broken through all these things numerous times, and he runs off into the wilderness. Here Jesus casts him out and he asks for his name. He says, what's your name? And he says Legion. So I can't remember if it's in the notes down here or not, but Legion is like it's 1,000 different demons. It's like an army of demons. I don't want to call it army, but you know what I mean? Like it's not just one. It's many in one, and that's also why it's so powerful. And I remember when I first read this, I was kind of like, well, one, like why wouldn't you just cast it away forever, and why would you still let it roam? And then it was like, why did you send it into the pigs? Like what did the pigs do, right? Like these poor piggies. And the notes do get into some of that, so I'll share that in a minute. But also then I thought it was interesting, like that the people were scared of Jesus and they wanted him to leave, and that took me a little bit to understand too, because I'm like, you just freed this guy who had been possessed for years, and you would see him, he was naked, he was unwell, he was, and now he's completely restored, he's healthy, he's not dealing with these demons, and like, why would you like want Jesus to leave? That's so weird. He just did something so great. And this is why I really appreciate notes, because it answered a lot of those things I just said. So it starts off, these demons recognized Jesus and his authority immediately. They knew who Jesus was and what his great power could do to them. Demons, Satan's messengers, are powerful and destructive. Still active today, they attempt to distort and destroy people's relationship with God. Demons and demon possession are real. It is vital that believers recognize the power of Satan and his demons, but we shouldn't let curiosity lead us to get involved with demonic forces. Demons are powerless against those who trust in Jesus. If we resist the devil, he will leave us alone. Okay, so the battle that we face here in the world is not just of like flesh, physical, like there's a very supernatural part to this. There's very severe spiritual warfare. And while we may be used to seeing movies like The Exorcist or stuff like that, we think it's always going to only look that way when the devil is trying to come into our lives and our heart and take over some part of our spirit. But the devil is very clever, and he has masked his schemes in various different ways. It can be distractions, it can be an attack on your identity, it can be when he causes disturbances in your relationships, conflict, and just whispering a ton of lies in your ear. I read two really good books actually that I would recommend. It was Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill, and then it's The Screwtape Letters by C.S. Lewis. And it really puts a different perspective on just how the enemy attacks us. And that's probably more something that you would see nowadays, at least here on our side of the world, because you still hear about these kinds of things in other parts of the world. Just because it doesn't happen here in the US at your school every day, for example, doesn't mean it doesn't still happen elsewhere. The spiritual attacks happen every day. They just look a little bit different, and he's gotten a lot more craftier over the years. And there was actually this really neat movie that came out many years ago, Nefarious, and I mean, it's not like completely biblical, so please don't watch this movie and assume that everything is exactly what's in the Bible. No, it's not. But it is kind of similar when you hear what this demon has to say about how he has been able to control a lot of people's way of thinking in making them believe things that they think they came up with, and disguising them as other things. And anyway, it really intrigued me. So I mean, I definitely recommend watching that movie too, Nefarious. But disclaimer, I am not claiming that it is Christian. It's not even a Christian movie. But there's a lot of discussion on spiritual warfare. Okay, sorry, back to the reading. The demons begged Jesus to spare them from the bottomless pit, which is also mentioned in Revelation 9:1 and 20 verses 1 through 3, as the place of confinement for Satan and his messengers. The demons, of course, knew all about this place of confinement, and they didn't want to go there. Reading that was interesting for me, because I guess I always assumed, well, you already decided you wanted to follow Satan, so why are you upset and avoiding the one thing that you really wanted? Well, because they found out it's really not what they wanted, and it's actually really bad, and what Satan claimed to offer was not even true. It was a lie, and it's absolute torment and destruction for the rest of your life, and it never ends because it's for eternity. So you it would never end, and it's like a thirst that it will never actually be quenched. You're just among fire. Well, it's a lot more detailed in Revelation about it, but so I don't know. That one was just interesting to me. So why didn't Jesus destroy the demons? It says, or send them into the bottomless pit. It says, because the time for such work had not yet come. He healed many people of the destructive effects of demon possession, but he did not yet destroy demons. The same question could be asked today. Why doesn't Jesus stop all the evil in the world? His time for that has not yet come, but it will come. The book of Revelation portrays the future victory of Jesus over Satan, his demons, and all evil. God allows Satan to roam and do what he does. He serves a purpose too. Like, we were given free will, right? So God doesn't want just mindless believers. He wants us to choose him from our heart. And so you have to be given a choice, right? And it serves a purpose. Like, it's obviously a lot more comprehensive than that, but bottom line is it's going to help weed out who's a real follower and who's not. Okay, so let's go to these pigs. It says, a man had been freed from the devil's power, but the people in the town thought only about the livestock. People have always tended to value financial gain above needy people. Much injustice and oppression, both at home and abroad, is the direct result of some individuals or companies' urge to get rich. People are continually being sacrificed to the god of money. Don't think more highly of pigs than of people. Which, if you go back to the statement of my thought that I had about, like, why would you put it into the pigs? I mean, that's kind of like what I was thinking at initially, right? Like, why don't we care about the pigs, but are the pigs higher than the people? And so also I didn't realize that, I guess I didn't really think about how the pigs were these people's livelihood. This is how they made money. And, now that it's spelled out for me, I'm like, well, duh, Denise, that's just how things were then. So cut me some slack, guys. So here's one thought that was presented to me sometime earlier this year, about this particular scenario. There was a big storm that happened before getting to this coast, getting to shore. The enemy knew that if Jesus made it, he was going to take care of this, right? He was going to cast this demon out. And it's a very powerful demon. And so There was this whole presentation about all like the weather and how bad it got there, was hopefully to get them off track to keep going where they were going. It was an obstacle in the way to deter them from going over and accomplishing what Jesus was going to do anyway, because Jesus knew where he was headed. He knew what was happening next. So here's the thing. I feel like there's a lesson in this other than what we've already gone over. Sometimes in life we have really difficult moments. It feels like a storm, right? It's like a hurricane that just came through our life, and there's that temptation to be like, oh no, then this must not be where God wants me, and this is like we're gonna abandon ship because it's too much. But maybe the enemy is trying to get you off course for where God is calling you to, and maybe where God is calling you to is on the other side of that. So, food for thought, an opportunity for us to look at life's challenges a little bit differently, through a different lens. Maybe rather than getting hung up on how hard this is and how we can't do it, maybe consider the stance of how can this glorify God. Okay, so let's move on to the bleeding woman and the girl that's getting healed. This is the last section. So Jesus leaves that place, right, after dealing with Legion, and the people want him to leave anyway. So he goes back, and now he's on the other side of the lake. He was very well greeted. There were crowds. People had been waiting for him. So there was a guy named Jairus. I may have said that wrong. And he was a leader of the local synagogue. He came and fell at Jesus' feet, pleading for him to come, please, and to come to his house because his daughter, who was like 12 years old, was dying. So he wanted Jesus to come and heal her because she was dying, and it was his daughter, and because he cares about her. As he's going through the crowd with his disciples. It's super crowded. People are like coming and piling on top of him, right? And it's like everybody's kind of caving in, and this woman ends up touching his robe, and she had been bleeding for years. She had some kind of a bleeding disease, and there was no cure for this. She had seen a ton of doctors. They couldn't figure it out. She had spent all her money on this, and remember, a bleeding woman is considered an unclean woman, and nobody can touch her. So she finds a way to come up behind Jesus. She touches his robe, and she's healed. And so Jesus pauses immediately, and he's like, who touched me? Because he knew. And so, his disciples are like, well, it could be anyone. Everyone's caving in on you. Of course, somebody touched you. And Jesus is like, no, somebody touched me because I felt power leave from me. So he's looking at the crowd, and, nobody's fessing up to this. And finally, the woman is like, it was me. And she was scared, right, guys? It says that she fell to her knees in front of him, and she began to tremble. So the whole crowd hears her explain why she touched him and that she had been immediately healed. So Jesus says, daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace. He says her faith, not the fact that she touched his robe. It had nothing to do with that. It was her faith. She believed that even just touching him was going to heal her. So faith goes a long way. So while this is happening, while he's still talking to her, some messenger from this guy Jairus comes up to Jesus and is like, hey, like bad news. She's already dead, so don't bother. So Jesus hears this, right? And he's like, no, don't be afraid. It's okay. Have faith and she will be healed, right? Like we just witnessed this lady. And so here's the thing, like up to this point, Jesus has been really open about the things that he's been doing. Like he hasn't been exclusive about who gets to witness it in those particular moments. So he gets to the house and he decides to be exclusive. He says Jesus wouldn't let anyone go in with him except Peter, John, James, and the little girl's father and mother. So the house was filled with people weeping and wailing, but he said, stop the weeping. She isn't dead. She's only asleep. And everyone's laughing at Jesus, right? Because they already know she's dead, and they're like, we already know she's dead. Like, you're crazy for even saying what you're saying because we've already seen her dead. Sidebar, imagine laughing at Jesus. Oh my gosh. Imagine. I feel like I would get struck by lightning in that moment. I hope I never do that. So anyway, Jesus is Jesus. He takes her by the hand and he says, my child, get up. And at that moment, life returned to her. She was alive. She immediately stood up. Jesus told them to give her something to eat. Her parents were overwhelmed, but Jesus insisted that they not tell anyone what had happened, because it would speak for itself anyway. So let's get into some of these notes. It says, it would have been quite unusual for a respected synagogue leader to fall at the feet of an itinerant preacher and beg him to heal his daughter. Jesus honored this man's humble faith. So that's a part that I didn't read, right? Because I didn't read the entire passage, but your version probably has something of the sort for how he came to ask God to do this, Jesus. So the woman. It says, certainly Jesus knew who had touched him. He knew that someone had intentionally touched him in order to receive some sort of healing. Jesus wanted the woman to step forward and identify herself. Remember what I said, how she was bleeding and considered unclean and no one can touch her? Listen, to let her slip away would have meant a lost opportunity for Jesus to teach her that his cloak did not have magical properties. Rather, her faith in him had healed her. He may also have wanted to teach the crowds a lesson. According to Jewish law, a man who touched a menstruating woman became ceremonially unclean. This was true whether her bleeding was normal or, as in this woman's case, the result of an abnormal condition. To protect themselves from such defilement, Jewish men carefully avoided touching, speaking to, or even looking at women. By contrast, Jesus proclaimed to hundreds of people that this unclean woman had touched him, and then he healed her. In Jesus' mind, this suffering woman was not to be overlooked. As God's creation, she deserved attention and respect. Again, more examples of Jesus making sure people saw that he valued women. He cared about them, he was concerned for them, he had compassion for them, and he loved them. So let's go to this child and those notes. People with children can readily put themselves emotionally in Jairus' place. His daughter had died while they were on the way home. Luke did not record it, but the poor man probably cried out in anguish. Jesus surely felt the father's very human grief. Jesus said, "Don't be afraid, just have faith." Again, Luke didn't record Jairus' reaction to these words, but he must have had at least some flicker of hope because he did complete his mission in bringing Jesus to his house. When you experience intense grief over the loss of a loved one, breakup of a marriage, loss of a job, or rejection of a close friend, don't abandon hope. I know that's hard, but don't abandon hope. Don't turn away from the one person who can help you. Do what Jairus did. Don't be afraid, just have faith. Your hope is found in the resurrected Lord, the one with power over life and death. Also, Jesus told the parents not to talk about their daughter's healing because he knew the facts would speak for themselves. Jesus was concerned for his ministry. He did not want to be known as just a miracle worker. He wanted people to listen to his words that could heal their broken spiritual lives. There's a lot happening here, and we're only getting into chapter 9. That's it for chapter 18. I hope some of this was helpful. If something else came to mind or you want to share something, drop it in the comments. I'd love to read it. Don't forget to hop into the Etsy shop to download your devotional. I will see you for chapter 9.